Is Kendall Coffee. Mr. Coffee is a former U.S. attorney, and he's now an NBC News legal analyst. Kendall Coffee, thanks very much for being with us.
Hey, thanks for inviting me.
So there are charges here about false statements and obstructing the inquiry, essentially charges related to the cover-up and trying to evade justice. But it seems to me like the core charges here are basically bribery. Is that correct when you look at this indictment?
It doesn't use the word bribery, but what it's really saying is there was an ongoing scheme to extract all kinds of personal benefits. In fact, close to $140,000 in largely cash items. The rather intriguing list of consumer items that you just detailed in order to get favorable treatment from the governor's office. And it's sufficiently specific in terms of the kind of favorable treatment that was sought, so that I think that the federal prosecutors can make out successful charges, even though the defense is going to argue you have to have more of a specific quid pro quo here. It isn't like the governor was going to veto or not veto legislation or sign some particular bill based on your enticements. It was more of having a strategic relation and getting help with perhaps with a couple study probes that the private vendor wanted to get the governor's assistance on.
The governor's response today was that this whole prosecution, he said, was based on a novel legal theory and that nobody has ever been prosecuted for this sort of thing before. What do you make of that line of defense from Governor McDonnell?
There's nothing novel about this. When someone in public office tries to turn a private party into effectively an ATM machine, which is what the government's alleged here, in order to get all kinds of personal benefits, golfing trips, family vacations, cash advances, loans, whatever you want to call them, of $120,000. There's nothing novel about that. If the government can prove it, it's a crime. And the government's got multiple theories that are tried and true and tested in other corruption cases.
It sounds like you think this is a strong indictment. I just interviewed Rosalind Helderman from the Washington Post, who's been one of the leading reporters on this. She said, just as a journalist, one of the things that she was surprised by the indictment is that it does seem like a strong indictment, at least from a layman's perspective. It sounds like that's your view, too.
Yeah, it's very, very detailed. And they've got emails where the former First Lady was basically saying, we're broke. You got to come through and help me get some money here. And a couple of the elements that I think would create additional strength in front of a jury are the fact that the governor was a former attorney general. He had to know about where the line was and where the line wasn't. For example, the indictment alleges that he failed to disclose substantial loans on financial applications. Maybe some people can say, I forgot, but I'm not so sure that that's something that a former attorney general can get away with. The other thing about this that really creates sizzle and spice with a jury from a prosecution standpoint is the list you were sharing with your viewers. When you're talking about Louis Vuitton, when you're talking about Rolex, when you're talking about Armani, those kind of things that might have a juror that's going into the case with an open mind, all of a sudden, when they hear about things that seem like extravagant greed, things that they could never hope to own, all of a sudden you'll see their reaction right in the courtroom. They'll start to look differently at everything about the case. So the government's got plenty of specifics, and I think the right kind of elements that give this a powerful force in a courtroom.
Kendall Coffee, former U.S. attorney and NBC News legal analyst now. Thank you very much for joining us tonight, helping us understand this. I appreciate it.